Coming live to you from Durham, North Carolina. I'm Patricia A. Murray, your host. The show's called TV Skywriter because I have an online all-positive newspaper called the Durham Skywriter, and Radio Skywriters on WNCU. It just ended a few minutes ago. That's on WNCU, one of our local NPR stations. So on today's show, this is going to be kind of a locally focused show, but for those of you interested in transit, and for those of you who are living in populations that are growing quickly, and you need more transportation, and you're curious about the issues, let's meet Natalie Murdoch. She is the Public Involvement Manager at Triangle Transit. Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Very happy to have you. And also Megan McCoy. She is the Environmental Transportation Manager, also with Triangle Transit. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Now, the Triangle, which is, we seem to be adopting more cities. I think it used to be just Raleigh and Durham, Chapel Hill, and now it's Hillsborough and Carrboro and I don't know what else. But basically, our area is growing quite fast.
Yeah.
We didn't really suffer some of the downturn, when they had the downturn in the economy like 2007, 2008, a lot of people did suffer and lose their homes, but our area wasn't hit as hard. And people are still coming in, and apparently someone came up with the idea of creating a light rail transit system to connect Durham and Chapel Hill. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Well, you kind of gave us a really great lead. As you know, we are continuing to grow. We have immense amounts of people that want to move to this area for all the great universities and hospitals and the jobs that support all of these major activity centers in our region. And so this transportation planning has started over 20 years ago, and we've continued.
20 years ago?
2 years ago. I know, can you believe that? Yes. So this has been ongoing. The region's really looked at, okay, people are continuing to grow here. We want to make sure that we're focusing that growth on corridors that can support that growth. So the infrastructure needs to be there so that we continue to enjoy the quality of life that we have today, which is one of the major reasons why people move here. And so one thing we're looking at is, how can we best serve those populations through both a transportation solution and also by supporting the land use in the area. So we work closely with all of the local governments who have established plans to focus the growth, and we want to make sure that we're serving that growth.
So when you say governments, is that only Durham and Chapel Hill, or do you have to take the other cities into consideration as well? Like I mentioned, Raleigh, Hillsborough, Carrboro.
Yeah, so the area that we're looking at in Durham and Orange counties is served by what's called a metropolitan planning organization, which has representation from a lot of the smaller local governments as well as both Durham and Chapel Hill. And so that they really set the tone for the long-range transportation plan, and looking 30, 40 years out, how can we plan for the future growth and development? And so they work together, and we work with the Durham, Chapel Hill, Carrboro Metropolitan Planning Organization to make sure that we're in line with their plans, and we're helping those plans to move forward.
Okay. And then, Natalie, I met you at a meeting. Mm-hmm. Actually, I met you at the same meeting.
Yeah, same night.
Yeah, and it was really interesting, some of the topics that we discussed, where exactly the train tracks are going to be. Homeowners were there. They were worried whether their homes were going to be sacrificed for the light rail system, and you were there answering those questions. Mm-hmm. So tell us what some of the issues were that we talked about besides those two.
Yeah, there are a number of topics that surround the project. We are currently focused on getting the environmental documentation together, so that 2-year study is called, we generate a draft and the final environmental impact statement. So even though that's kind of what we're primarily focused on currently, it's still going to bring up a lot of issues as far as where will the project be located, how will it impact issues such as affordable housing, such as job creation. So we are still very early on in the process. And so I think the beauty of that is, since we are 10 or so years out, the time to have those discussions as a community is now. As Triangle Transit, we can't and would not simply make those decisions alone. It is collaborative, and it will be guided by the NPO that Megan just mentioned, as well as the City of Durham, Durham County, Chapel Hill, and Orange County. But I think for sure the jobs piece, affordable housing, in addition to concerns of property impact, are some issues that are really rising to the top. And I think, unfortunately, some people hear environmental impact statement and their eyes kind of glaze over. But the purpose of that is looking at the different factors that we'll consider and how will we weigh those factors. So if it,
when I think environment, I'm thinking of the oceans and the rivers.
Yeah, but it's a lot more than that.
Exactly.
So one of the major things that I work on is, and as Natalie talked about, is the environmental impact statement, and something called the National Environmental Policy Act enabled anytime you have a federal dollar that is planning to be spent, you want to make sure that you're going to put together an impact statement to look at what are the possibilities for this project as affecting the community. And the community is everything from the environment, from the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees, to the people who live there and the jobs and how the community itself is going to be impacted.
Okay.
And that's both positive and negative. So we look at all those things, we put together a big document, and we want to make sure the most important part, because as you may be familiar, 50 years ago, we didn't have this process in the federal process, and transportation projects in particular would come into communities and really create a divide. And so the most important part is that this is a public involvement process. This is the ability for you to understand what is going on and you to weigh in on this process. And so that's something really important to us, that we want to make sure that people understand that we are, as Natalie said, very early on, and we have some conceptual plans at this point. But one of the things that's kind of interesting is part of the federal process itself. So I don't know if you can see this here.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are in the federal pipeline, which is a good thing. So this means we can start competing for federal funds, and we are in what's called project development. And project development, as Natalie said, is a 2-year process. And during this time, we look at the environmental impacts of the process, and we have to finish this environmental review and complete our designs to a point where the federal government feels comfortable with us going to the next and advancing to the next hurdle, which is engineering. And after that hurdle, we have a 3-year period where we develop those plans, and then we apply for the full funding grant agreement. And the one thing I like to kind of compare it to is it's almost like you're going to the bank to get a mortgage. Mm-hmm. You want to apply for a loan or a mortgage, and you have to provide all this proof to the bank that you have what it takes to take on that money and take on that responsibility. And so one thing that we're doing as part of this process is we're demonstrating that our project is a great project and that it's serving the community and that it's minimizing any potential impacts and that we're mitigating any potential impacts to the community, and we're creating an environment where the public has been involved and they have been able to weigh in on the development from the start. And that we want to make sure that we have the financial capacity to do this, and that's one thing that we have to demonstrate, as well as the engineering plans, that we have great plans that are solid and that they feel comfortable with before we can move forward. So that's kind of where we are in the grand scheme of things. It's 2 years as part of that overall, process to get to the point where we want to sign a full funding grant agreement with the federal government so that they will help fund 50%. We would like 50% to help us fund the project. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so are we competing with other cities? You said you used the word competition. Are we being pitted against other cities?
I wouldn't say pitted, but the one thing is, as part of it's called a New Starts process, and so New Starts is the federal grant that we are applying for. And in that process, anyone in the U.S. that, not anyone, but any agency in the U.S. can apply for that. And the interesting thing is that during our application process, we were one of 2 that were accepted into the pipeline at this time. So one of 2 in the entire. So that's really great. You know, that shows that they really have faith in where we are going and that we have a good, solid basis on our project.
Mm-hmm. And something else to highlight too when it comes to where we are in the process and that we are a serious project. Also want to highlight a number of individuals in the community, rightfully so. You were talking about all the growth in the Triangle region, but we still will have a successful project just by focusing on Durham-Orange County. And I don't think people realize just how many jobs and the type of traffic we have just within this corridor. If we're forecasting over 250,000 additional trips in the region, our current infrastructure simply just cannot support that. So even though we aren't currently planning to this specific project just focuses on 17 miles from UNC Hospital through downtown Durham and East Durham, we still will get the ridership that we need to make it a successful project.
Yeah, I'm from Chicago, and I'm accustomed to taking trains and buses all over the place. And the CTA and RTA, the different agencies that run the transit system in Chicago, I mean, they have millions of riders every day. And I'm wondering, here in our area, here in the Piedmont of North Carolina, I've noticed it's kind of a different culture. You'll see households with multiple cars, which you don't see so much in the inner city, at least in Chicago. And in Durham, I can't speak for Chapel Hill, but I'm amazed. You'll drive down the street and see 4 cars in front of one house. You know, wife will have a car, husband, and kids if they're, you know, older teenagers. So it seems that our culture's different. Is there going to be a problem trying to get people to even take these trains?
Well, I'd say that, you know, for one, we are a much younger system than Chicago and some in New York and, you know, a lot of the other traditional systems that we know in very large cities. Because we are a growing city and we are a new city in the grand scheme of the history of the U.S., you know, one thing that we are looking at is we're seeing actual shifts in people, you know, did characteristically have lots of cars and things like that and access to cars. But the one thing that we're seeing, especially in the Durham-Orange area, is we have a huge transit-dependent populations that we're looking to serve that are already riding today. Over 73,000 people ride every day just in our corridor. And we are projecting that that will continue to grow in the future. And so we want to make sure that we're providing a service, you know, because if you think about you know, UNC, Duke University, North Carolina Central University, and Durham Tech, those are all within our greater corridor area, and those are students and faculty that are needing to get to class, and you know, they may not have a car, and so providing access and opportunities really is kind of helping to continue to grow our region. The other thing we have is we're afforded great hospitals in this region, and they provide a lot of access or they provide a lot of jobs, and so we want to make sure that we're continuing to provide access to these areas. And really what we're seeing overall is, you know, in this corridor, a lot of people are choosing transit over their cars, even if they have them.
Yeah, they definitely are. Just the 3 systems combined serve about 73,000 riders, which is a really big number to be in the South in general, but definitely the Southeast, and people forget, you know, just how populated we are. So I think that we'll pick up a lot of ridership from current transit riders. And then I love to use my own mom as an example. She's one of those choice riders that she loves to train. She's in Greensboro. She loves to take Amtrak from Greensboro to Raleigh and beyond and to Charlotte. And she would definitely be one of those individuals that when she's in the area, you know, would love to take light rail as well. So I think a number of individuals who don't even use public transportation currently, when it's a train system, they'll be very excited about using that. And for current transit riders, it's a very easy transition. So I think that helps out. And I think also residents like you, I think we have so many more transplants which I hate to say that, it's probably not the best term, but tons of people moving in from all over, from California, from the Midwest, from the Northeast, and when I do, we're approaching over 3,000 some odd people we've talked to about this project, did a tally last week, and so many of them, they lived in New Jersey, they lived in New York, they lived in Baltimore, they lived in Boston, and they're excited about it. They're like, oh, great, a train like I used to have when I, lived somewhere else. So I think that influx of Durham residents that are coming in from all over will also help with that perception of what the train is and what it means to ride it.
A lot of those.
I do agree with you because I'm excited, even though you said it's not going to. If we do get the train, it will take a few years, right?
A little ways out. We do have to demonstrate, that we are a solid project and that we have good design, and so it is a few years out before we'll have operations. But we are projecting to begin construction in the 2019-2020 time frame, and we'd be operating the first vehicle in 2026.
Okay, I want you to address two things.
Okay.
The first is the route, or the route of the train. I understand that it's going to start in my community, but I'd like for you to tell us where. I don't know if it's you're still determining the exact stops, but if you could tell us basically where the train's going to run.
So we've got a little map, and I'm not sure if you can see that there. The lighting in here is terrible, but you can go on to ourtransitfuture.com and check.
I can see it well.
Okay, great. You can also go on to ourtransitfuture.com after the show and check out all of the great material we have online. But it's 17 miles, 17 stations, and it would begin at UNC hospitals in Orange County in Chapel Hill, and then move on to Mason Farm Road area, then to Hamilton, and then followed by that we have a couple of alignment alternatives that we're looking at. And so this is one of the things that you had just mentioned, kind of alluded to. We do have generally the alignment itself within the corridor is established. Where we are studying some alternatives are the crossings and some environmentally sensitive areas, the crossing of Little Creek and the crossing of New Hope Creek. And so this is the first alignment area that we're looking at a couple of alternatives, and this is what we'll be asking the public to kind of start weighing in on, what their feelings are on these crossings. So as you can see, there's a lot of dots here at Friday Center, and really what that amounts to is it would be one station, but depending on which alignment alternative is selected, the location would go with that alignment alternative. So we have Friday Center, which is a major conference center associated with UNC, and then we have the Lee Village, which is a major opportunity for development, and then we have speaking of other alternatives, we're also looking at rail operations maintenance facility alternatives. So we have 5 that we're studying, and of those 5, we will select one. And a rail operations maintenance facility is essentially where I like to say where the cars go to sleep, the train cars go to sleep at night. But they are maintained there, they are serviced there, so there's job opportunities that are associated with those rail operations maintenance facilities. But also where they operate out of. So during the day, we would send vehicles out into service from those locations. So we have a couple of different locations between Lee Village and Gateway that we're looking at, and Gateway would be the next station. And then after that, we have Patterson Place. There are 2 alternatives associated with Patterson Place. This is an existing shopping center, and you may be familiar with, it has some kind of big stores in that area, but the long-term goal is to redevelop that area into something that's more transit-friendly, that is a little bit more dense than what's currently out there today. And then we have a couple alignment alternatives in this area. This is the crossing of New Hope Creek, and so we're looking at different alternatives of how we cross the New Hope Creek. So one would be closer to 15501. The other would come across 15501 and then down by Garrett Road, and then going to Martin Luther King Jr. Station. And then the last one would go through which is also called the locally preferred alternative, which was originally adopted, it would go through the New Hope Creek area and go directly to Martin Luther King Jr. Station. So once we get to Martin Luther King Jr. Station, depending on which alignment alternative is selected, again, we'd have one station associated with that station, and then we move to South Square, another area that it's got a lot of retail and a lot of job opportunities. And then we leave from South Square Station, and there's a rail operations maintenance facility that we're looking at between South Square and LaSalle. And then we move on to LaSalle Station, which is really kind of getting closer to the heart of Durham and near Duke University. And so that's the first one is we come up Irwin Road, and then we have the next one would be the Duke Eye Care Center. And we are looking at two different locations in this area for the Duke VA Medical Center station. So one's the Duke Eye Care Center, and the other one would be at Trent Flowers Drive, which is an area that Duke University is looking to kind of focus their central campus. So we're looking at the alternative.
Which one also would serve the VA hospital?
These two. So this is the Duke University VA Center.
Okay.
And so.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're about basically about a block and a half from each other, but we're looking at which station would best serve that area. So we are asking the public to weigh in on Eye Care Center versus Trent Flowers. Both are within proximity to Duke hospitals, as well as Duke Central Campus, as well as the VA Medical Center.
I can imagine that being a New York City station, because a lot of people are going to use that one.
Yeah, I mean, as it is right now, that's a lot of our routes currently go down that down Irwin Road, and so we see a lot of people going to jobs, a lot of people going to the university, a lot of people going to the hospitals for medical services. And then we kind of get into the downtown Durham area, and the first station is 9th Street Station. That would be a walk-up station primarily. So, and then from there we continue on down to the existing railroad corridor we're currently looking at coming down. So where Amtrak kind of comes in, we would be parallel to the Amtrak line.
Okay.
And
but you can't use their tracks, can you?
No, we cannot use their tracks. It's a different track, so we would have our own tracks.
Okay.
And so we would not be, we would not have to stop and let any other trains go by because we would have our own tracks.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. But we would be within that same corridor. So if you're familiar with that area, we would be parallel to them. Then from 9th Street, we go into Buchanan Boulevard, and so yeah, there we go. I'm looking at this backwards. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Durham Station, and so Buchanan's next station. Buchanan's one that I know we've been talking a lot with the Coalition for Affordable Housing and Transit. They're very interested in looking at how they can put affordable, or look at how they can plan for affordable housing in this area. And then.
Is the Durham station near the transportation station, the bus station?
It would be right across the street, right where the Amtrak station is. And so basically this would become a really great opportunity to do a lot of transferring. So you have Megabus, you have Greyhound, you have our local data services, you have Triangle Transit, you have a lot of, and then you have the Amtrak. So there's a lot of opportunities to kind of transfer from train to bus to train, whatever you need to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so then from Durham Station we move into Dillard Street, and the Dillard Station, is currently an area that we're looking at having a park and ride, and then the Terminus Station, which would be in East Durham, both Dillard and Alston are really kind of closer to where you're, in your community there. So
it would also serve the DSS, the Durham Social Service.
Yes, which is brand, and if you're familiar with the area, it's really a brand new, it's a beautiful facility. It's a lot of folks love, they have opportunities go there. And then at Austin Avenue, we're looking at another, it would be the terminus station, and there would be a park and ride. We're looking at building a garage, and
that would be awesome.
Yeah, so you'd be able to, take your car, drop it off, and ride the line. And then at the very end, you can kind of see this last orange dot. We're looking at a rail operations maintenance facility alternative as well. So that's the last of the 5 alternatives that we're evaluating as part of this environmental process. So we're again for some feedback on that, So.
Yeah, I think when everyone thinks the project is 10 years out, we can't stress enough the need to comment on, the top topics of the different alternatives we're looking at in the Chapel Hill Meadow Mine area, the New Hope Creek area, but particularly for the maintenance facility location. I think that's an awesome opportunity for individuals who don't really see the impact of the project and don't think it affects them. The time to comment is now, because once we're planning and building for it, the issue will be off the table. So we really need them to weigh in now and to let us know not only their thoughts, but as we highlighted earlier, we'll look at the different factors that will impact selecting a site for the facility, and the community can help share with us what values they think that we should consider in making that decision and why.
Okay. Now, twice during our conversation, you mentioned affordable housing, and that was a real exciting subject to discuss during the meeting, the meeting where I met the two of you.
Yeah.
It was, I'd like for you to mention, if you don't mind telling us, you were talking about certain percentages of affordable housing that you were aiming for along the corridor. Could you just discuss that?
Yeah, just to clarify, the percentages that have been set are actually been set by the City of Durham, and the Coalition for Affordable Housing was a great partner in helping to establish I believe it's 15%. 15% in station areas is their goal for affordable housing in those areas. Now, one thing to clarify, that Triangle Transit as a transportation agency, we don't actually have control over land use and decision making from that perspective, so we are really looking to the City of Durham to really help in making sure that those goals are carried out. And so there's a great partnership with the City of Durham, and also a lot of these nonprofit local groups that are advocacy groups that are working hard, because it is a big priority, and it is also a concern for the community.
And there was actually an article in the paper just last week that ran in the Herald Sun, and an article also ran in Indy Week as a result of the meeting where we met you. And so it really looks as if the advocacy groups will continue to push the topic, and they're kind of building up that support at the ground level, because we have a resolution, but kind of the next step is for the city and the county to kind of figure out how will they have additional policies and incentives to help to implement that goal. And so something that Pat Young touched on at that meeting was the City of Durham is fleshing out a 4-part strategy that actually lay out how they seek to achieve this goal of 15% of affordable units within the half-mile radius of all the station areas.
Okay, say that again, because that's very important. The last part.
Oh, yes. The 15%?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the 15% goal, and something else that they're working through is, will this 15% be completely new housing? How will it impact, how will that number be impacted by the units that are currently affordable? So those are still things that they're working through, and also it's one of those topics where you can't really just hit the ground running. You have to do tons of research to see what's going to work, and they're continuing to scrub up the inventory. Who owns land? Who owns the properties that are close to these stations? What zoning is even is there currently? What will possibly need to be changed to even allow additional units to be built? So there's still a lot of issues to work through, because I think the main takeaway is, if it was such an easy issue to resolve, then we would have already solved it. It's very, very complex. and other areas where they do have really strict regulations over a 10-year period, they haven't, studies show that they may not necessarily create as many units as they could have if it was something more flexible where you kind of work project by project with the developer individually, which is something that the City of Durham is considering as something that's a little more hands-on and more appropriate for the development. Because even when you look at something like area median income, that really ranges from 15501 through downtown to East Durham. You know, so you're talking completely different real estate markets, completely different kind of that target, you know, resident is, you know, it just depends. So it's really not a one-size-fits-all for all the stations in Durham. So it's really going to be like a plan just for Durham.
I think it's excellent that you are at least considering the affordable housing issue, because in some cities where the trains are you know, coming through the city, very often high income development surrounds the stations rather than affordable housing, because it becomes trendy, depending on the city, I suppose. It's very important, I think, to at least have some affordable housing close by, because after all, the trains are serving people very often who don't have the money for cars, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so again, you know, while we don't actually have, you know, power to control and enforce or implement any of these goals, we are working with the folks that can, and so we want to make sure that people understand that we recognize that this is important to the community, and we are there to support that this is a goal that the community has set, and we want to make sure that as we are, you know, creating this project, that it's a project for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And we also really need to applaud Durham for their efforts. We had a national speaker to come from a group called Policy Link based in the Bay Area, and she could not cite a single example where a community started planning 10 years out. So it's actually really, really remarkable that we're having these discussions early on before these developments are even being approved. You know, a lot of these developments are just kind of a theory and haven't really gone through the approval process. So the time to have those discussions is now.
Absolutely.
Well, I am accustomed to projects happening without being, you know, I mean, they'll tell us when it's happening, and they don't ask for our input. So I think it's a good idea, you know, that you are asking for our input. And in fact, if people do want to tell you what they feel about this project and how it's going to affect the community, I do have a form here. Is it too late to fill out this form?
No, not at all. We will take those forms through the spring, but the call of action is to please fill them out by November 7th. That will greatly influence the planning going forward. If we can get that input by November 7th, then we'll actually incorporate them into the meetings that we plug here. We're having public meetings the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday before Thanksgiving. So they can actually go to our website and fill the survey form out online.
Okay.
And
where do they go?
Yeah, the 4 meetings.
Can you see that? There you go.
Can you see them? The meeting on the 18th is downtown Durham Station from 11 to 2. Mm-hmm. And then also on Tuesday the 18th, it'll be at the Friday Center from 4 to 7. Then
Awesome.
November 19th at Patterson Place, the Spring Hill Suite at Patterson Place. And then November 20th, we'll be at the Hayti Center. And another one that we added in that's kind of specifically for, you know, since they asked for it, we're also having one at Holton Career Services on November 22nd as a result of some PAC 1 and just other meetings we've been having in the Eastern area. So November 22nd, we'll be having one at Holton as well.
Awesome.
These public meetings are really important for the community to come and give their input, and if they're not able to, of course, to go online and fill out the survey or to mail back one of those comment forms. And another thing that I think would be a great thing to ask for, if there's any group out there that wants us to come and present and learn more about this project, we would love to come out and talk. We talk to groups of 10, 5, 100, however many.
Yes.
You know, we want to come and make sure that everybody knows about this and everybody has an opportunity to weigh in.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an awesome segue, because I was really wanting to stress that I've been on board with the project since about May, And we've been really aggressive in our approach. We have over 300 and some odd organizations that we email to say, please let us meet with you. So, we aren't just hanging out waiting by the phone, waiting for it to ring. We're going out there, we're scheduling those appointments, trying to get them scheduled, and to show kind of the range of events. Just last week alone, actually met with a community member alone at the public library. Walk them through the video, show them how to access the project video. So that ranged from one individual to Durham Congregations in Action to Chapel Hill Chamber of Commerce. So we really do meet with a huge gamut and facet of groups, and just do ask, be sure to have the contact information for me listed. If they just shoot me an email or give me a call, we're more than happy to schedule something to see what we can attend. And also events. We went to the Phoenix Fest, the Center Fest, tons of festivals. In the spring we'll be at the Food Truck Rodeo. So we really try to hit a diverse amount of events as much as we can in different areas, different settings.
That's great, and I will. All you have to do is to send me whatever you want me to put in the description of this show as far as contact information. I'll be happy to do that as well.
Great. Yeah, we really want everybody to reach out. info@ourtransitfuture.com.
And also for individuals that are a member of listservs, particularly that have like 50+ people. If you're on a listserv of like 1,000, it's great for, we can email you the information and we can just send you an e-blast to go to your neighborhood groups because, as you know, it would just be a lot better received if it's from someone that's already a member of that listserv instead of us kind of forwarding it. So if there's something that they want us to send, they can let us know. We can also do custom pieces for newsletters and websites and things like that. So they can just contact me and let me know.
Wonderful. Now, before we go, I do have one more question.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if Raleigh and if RDU Airport, are they going to feel left out? Are they going to want to jump in at the last minute when they see that it's really going to happen?
Yeah, well, currently the initial long-term plan was kind of like a multi-tier plan in different phases. So in the event that things were to change, we can easily incorporate all of Wake County, which would include the RTP and the airport. But kind of the strategy there is we're just taking a step back to really focus on an overall vision. So Wake County kicks off a planning process that will include all different modes. So they're looking at what will bus service look like, kind of for starters. You really need a strong bus service to feed into the transit. Then they're considering, other modes that can include, light rail and commuter rail as well. But we're currently focused on just a broad approach of what is the vision long-term for Wake County with all the growth, kind of looking at where are those corridors that those connections will make the most sense. So they're definitely not left out, and we are working with them very closely. Here to the ground.
They'd be jealous.
well, maybe.
That may be, something else. But for now, we do work very closely with them on their the Wake County plan that they're fleshing out right now.
So give us that website one more time for getting the information and filling in the comment sheet.
Yeah, if they go to www.ourtransitfuture.com, the homepage will lead them to a link to the survey, as well as a link to the project overview video and an interactive map. We did not plug this map yet in the broadcast. We have an awesome interactive map where you can just click on it, enter your address, and it will show you how close you are to the project area. And one quick thing to highlight, if individuals see the route and don't think it necessarily goes to their front door, the bus integration plan will complement what we're planning very, very seamlessly. So it will be a complete plan that will show you which routes will connect to stations if you aren't, within walking distance of a light rail station.
I mean that.
Yeah, it's an overall network. Like we were talking a little bit before, I mean, you can transfer from a bus to rail. It's just, the rail really serves as the spine, and the buses help to kind of feed everybody into the network. And we're also looking at other infrastructure improvements. So if you want to bicycle or walk to the stations, we're working with the local governments to really help improve that infrastructure as well.
Mm-hmm. And two meetings coming up. They have one on October 28th, I believe, and November 1st, which is a Saturday, of what infrastructure improvements will occur around the stations. And yes, and one of those is at Holton. I believe the one at Holton Career Services is November 1st. So SASSEP is the name of that program, and that will be very critical as far, and even for, you know, like the affordable housing issues. You know, you still need to walk and bike, you know, to the stations as well. You can't just have the housing and nothing else. So it should be a complete network of, you know, housing as well as transportation infrastructure and even water and sewer.
So lots of opportunities to get involved. So if you ever, you know, if you have a question, or if you go onto our website, on ourtransitfuture.com, and you click on the Durham-Orange project page, and you have any questions about any of the material, you can always email us at info@ourtransitfuture.com. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have. So if you think of something after the program, please feel free to email us.
Yeah,
I look forward to coming to these meetings.
As soon as possible.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I will be attending these meetings and trying to learn more about this project, because I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, and we cannot stress enough to fill out those forms if you are in the city of Durham and get water bills from the city. And that water bill in November, it will include a comment form. So it will include a list of all the November meeting dates, a project map, the fast facts of the project, and a comment form on the back that individuals can mail in, and also gives information of how to call, as well as shoot us an email.
Clever. It's a clever way to do it.
70,000 of them.
Yes, we look forward to hearing from all of you, all 70,000.
Well, thank you again, Natalie Murdoch and Megan McCoy, for being on the show. They're both from Triangle Transit. And this issue is something that I think other cities might be wrestling with in the very near future, as populations continue to grow and as people leave failing areas for more successful ones like ours. Not that I'm inviting everyone to move here, but you're welcome. We can probably handle you. Yeah. And with that, thanks again. Now, if you want to be on TV Skywriter, if you're a writer, entrepreneur, or just have something very interesting to talk about, email me, durhamskywriter@gmail.com. You have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday. Ciao.
Thank you.